Just wasted my money buying this 100-inch television, and you already know what the first thing I'm watching on this thing is. The year is 2006 and the unthinkable has happened. Jimmy Neutron has been unceremoniously cancelled. For various reasons I discussed in a giant retrospective I made about the series a few weeks back, Jimmy Neutron saw its final episodes released despite the crew fully anticipating a fourth season, going so far as to map out some plot points and overarching stories they were planning to tackle. It's hard to pin it on one thing. Nickelodeon changing presidents at the time, who may have felt the 90 or so segments were more than enough, wanting to focus more on new series they were planning to create, like Tack or Robot and Monster. I think by far the biggest reason, though, had to have been series co-creator John A. Davis's company closing over the catastrophic failure of the Ant Bully. I mean, if you're gonna put all your eggs in one basket, why the Ant Bully? At least we got to see Paul the Monkey one last time.
Paul?
What the fuck was that? You can't just leave me like that. What, did he get poached? Sold with the bankruptcy? Every now and then an episode would end with one of these Paul variants. I was gonna say that in the original video, but I forgot. My bad. Imagine being a kid and seeing one of these live on air. You must have felt like you were going crazy.
Line.
Now, despite the show being over, that didn't mean there weren't any attempt to bring the series back in some form. This, most notably, the whole reason you're here, came in the form of a pitched spin-off that would star everybody's favorite Jimmy Neutron character, Ultra Lord. Yeah, this is real. It was gonna star the fictional superhero, who we'd learn lives under a secret identity, the mechanic Joey Impala. Obviously, by looking at this small bit of concept art, you can see it would have stayed true to Jimmy Neutron in terms of art style, but for whatever reason, it didn't go much further than the idea stage. Probably because it looked bad. Oh boy, I can't wait to see how Woody Ash became Stumpman. We never even got to meet Ultra Lord's supposed sidekick, Toy Boy. It's a bit of a weird fucking name to give a kid, even though it was never picked up and Jimmy Neutron remained dead, aside from a random Chrysler ad that came out after the series ended for some reason, and looks better than the actual show. What are you gonna do, shoot her? Series co-creator Steve Oedekerk continued his career at Nickelodeon, him and his company going on to produce the 2006 hit, in quotes, Barnyard, which gosh darn it sure is okay. Barnyard followed a similar pitch process as Jimmy, which I'll get into in another video because it's also pretty interesting and slightly creepy. However, shortly after learning of Jimmy's cancellation, Steve prepared a new pitch for the company, along with Keith Alcorn and Mike Gassaway, this being Red Acres. It would follow a fast food worker getting launched into space, crash landing on a planet of stupid aliens, and needing to adjust to his new life there. There's a few test renders for the cartoon which showcases a character who looks just like an adult combination of Jimmy and Carl. You can even see Jimmy's logo in the background on one of them. Nickelodeon expressed interest in the idea but had one major issue, that being the unnamed protagonist. Nickelodeon wasn't sure kids would want to watch a show with an adult lead, which, is stupid, but either way, they requested a child protagonist, in which they, after failing to pitch it to a couple other studios, decided to go back to the drawing board, morphing the series into a Jimmy Neutron spin-off, starring Sheen Estevez and Carl. Then Nick said, "Fuck Carl," and what we were left with was Planet Sheen, which, released in 2010, was received horribly and got cancelled after one season. Brilliant.
Sheen, do not push this button. JN, don't push which button? There's so many.
Now, putting your comic relief character in the spotlight has always been a recipe for disaster, and it becomes pretty apparent why when you spend 2 seconds analyzing that phrase, comic relief. Relief being the operative word. Comic relief characters, particularly goofy sidekicks like Sheen, are meant to give the audience a small break from whatever important shit is happening in a story, helps take the edge off. Sheen was used excellently for this purpose in those 3 seasons of Jimmy Neutron, as well as the movie. He was a fan favorite, with many moments of his still being remembered fondly to this day.
Yeah, Jimmy, hiding from Cindy isn't the answer. Not when reasonably priced plastic surgery is so readily available.
But when you try to expand upon such a basic character, enough to make him a leading man, you're only really given 2 options, those being either change nothing and hope audiences can tolerate him for an extended period of time, that's not happening, or alter his character enough to help him stand on his own, give him more depth. But if you have to go that far, then you're basically admitting that this character, as they stand, aren't capable of holding their own program. Planet Sheen, weirdly enough, tries to take both these approaches, and it crashes and burns as a result. And it's a shame because even though the characters go to space is considered to be such a tired and cliche trope, I think it works perfect for Jimmy Neutron. The characters traveling through space has been a consistent element of the series from the very start, and in Season 3 it was only becoming more and more prevalent. If Nick really wanted to make a Jimmy Neutron spin-off so bad, then I think a smarter option would have been to have all the main cast get stranded on an unknown planet. The entire show has them trying to adapt to their surroundings while Jimmy fixes up the ship in the background. There's at least more to work with there than this show's iconic characters like the Emperor and Tronold Dump, that's his name, which is funny because, as we're gonna soon see, that is clearly the show they wanted to make. But no, Sheen is the one to hijack Jimmy's rocket and is shot off into space, where the idiot residents of planet Xenu welcome him with open arms, believing he will bring peace to their world. Which, if you think about it, sounds like it could just be a regular episode of the show. Sheen steals Jimmy's rocket, gets stranded, the gang have to travel across space to get him back, but I don't know, he doesn't want to leave because they treat him like a hero. Fuck it, you know? Could have been an hour-long special called Planet Sheen. The biggest issue with this show, aside from the ungodly intro... Sorry, I just want to read you some of these lyrics real quick. Presented through this lyric video somebody kindly made. Tuna noodle casserole, pomegranate stew, stranded on a planet. What you gonna do? Change your name to Larry, rub bacon on the queen. It all makes perfect sense on... damn it, cuts off. I don't know what comes next. So Sheen is either annoying, or they bizarrely enough try to play him as cool, which makes him more annoying. Jeff Garcia, may he rest in peace, must have been directed to tone down Sheen's scratchy, more energetic voice. And because of that, he winds up sounding bored half the time. And again, I think this was to try and veer the character into coming off cooler. But the show consistently does that thing where, in order to make you think a character is cool, they simply have the rest of the cast constantly tout how fucking awesome he is. Praise be to Sheen, everyone fucking licks his feet, that happens. This is mostly seen through the Emperor and the residents of Xenu. See, it takes a special kind of idiot to see this guy as a hero, and so everyone's an idiot. They take Sheen at face value with everything he says, never questioning anything. The kid goes around telling people he's responsible for ending World War II, and they're just like, fucking awesome, you rock, Sheen! And you know, I can see how that would be funny in isolation, but the entire premise of the show is based around Sheen adjusting to his new life here. They'll end some episodes with him writing a captain's log to his grandma, telling her what he learned that day, and half the time it's basically nothing. Boy, this place sure is weird, but I sure do miss you, Grandma. Clearly not enough to fix your rocket, asshole! There is no real adjustment to be had. From minute one, he's made the Supreme Royal Advisor. They give him a house in the shape of his head. He's set, you know? They all love him. And the only way they could reasonably all love someone like this was for the writers to make every character in this show even dumber than Sheen. He can do anything, good or bad, and they'll praise him as the god they think he is. Another reason that Sheen was so funny in the original was watching how the other characters reacted to him. They knew he was saying dumb shit. He was the audience's stand-in.
Son, let me tell you a little story. Ah! Giant radioactive worms!
Sheen really needed to be the straight man to these new surroundings, fish out of water, or, you know, vice versa. Because all you're left with is a crazy character roaming around a crazy world. To Sheen, 8 crazy nights is just 8 normal nights. Their attempts to balance this out comes in the form of Mr. Nismith, a highly intelligent guy with a big head and brown hair. Huh. He acts as the straight man to Sheen's nonsense, actually wanting to go back to Earth, which Sheen just has no interest in. Bro has no concern for his family or friends. Sadly though, he is just a single ape in a town full of fools, so he isn't very effective at his role. He's often there to give Sheen advice, try point him in the right direction, but he rarely listens. Sheen mainly treats him as a pet. These two personalities apparently weren't strong enough to carry a series though, and so the creators, remembering their previous agreement, had an amazing idea. Let's just add Carl, but we won't call him Carl. Genius. And so what we're left with is Doppy, this green slug creature who sounds like Carl, looks like Carl, acts like Carl. His parents look like Carl's, but it's not Carl. They introduced this girl who basically acts as the Sandy Cheeks of the series, being this badass who knows how to fight and also, for some reason, likes Sheen and was apparently going to be a furry at some point. They never mention Libby, by the way. I think they'd probably prefer you forget she existed to make this relationship work. Honestly, my favorite character, and the only one I think I can say I like, is the show's main antagonist, Dorcas. You bet they get a lot of mileage out of that name. He's the Squidward of the series, but if Squidward had no other character trait aside from disliking SpongeBob. When Sheen crash lands on the planet, he destroys the guy's home and then proceeds to take his job without even trying. Fuck, I'd be pissed at the guy too. He's the only character who sees Sheen for the loser he is, and so winds up being the most relatable out of the bunch. He's got this little sidekick who has the weirdest voice ever, and sometimes I just wished the show was about them.
You're not sleeping well, are you, Pinter?
No, I haven't slept well in years, you know that.
But on this planet, disliking Sheen is the most disgraced crime there is, and so his life will forever consist of nothing but torture and misery. Now, despite the pilot for the series giving Sheen such an important role in the world, as well as him being destined to bring their people eternal joy, the show takes your form of an average sitcom. Big shocker there. The Emperor thinks the Ape has committed a crime, so Sheen has to defend him in court. Sheen teaches the aliens how to play baseball? Sheen hosts a party at his house, and it's taken all the attention away from Dorcas's party. So he gives Sheen a bomb. Then there are the plots that only serve to highlight Sheen's A, stupidity, and or B, selfishness. Like the one where he refuses to wash himself for no reason, or the one where he tries to introduce holidays to the people of Xenu, starting with one where everyone is forced to bring him presents. They attempt to try and give Sheen a bit of growth, learn a lesson or two, but we know that shit won't matter. The comedy dictates Sheen must be wacky and stupid, while the story dictates that something needs to happen, and so the show is constantly pulled between these two desires. There was exactly one episode where the show almost surprised me, and it sucks. Cutting the Ultra cord sees Sheen in an unusually low mood, not wanting to partake in any of his usual shenanigans, and he doesn't know why. It's bizarre they actually try to give him a bit of humanity. Yeah, you are stranded on a shitty planet of dumb aliens, your only friend is a monkey and a slug, and you're most likely never gonna see your friends or family again. Anyone would be miserable. I was curious whether or not they'd actually go far enough to acknowledge that. But no. Sheen realizes by the end the reason he's so upset is he misses Ultralord. But it's okay because he's like this planet's Ultralord. It was so close. Now, one of the more joked about aspects of Jimmy Neutron was how primitive the animation looked, especially today. But I've always been of the belief that the visuals only add to the charm of that show. Planet Sheen is like if you put the original Jimmy Neutron into AI and told it to shit out something to match current rendering standards, or at least the standards for 2010. These characters were never meant to be seen with such comparatively realistic textures. Why does Sheen have these constant dark circles under his eyes? What's he hiding? This show looks like those Grand Theft Auto remasters. Like, yeah, it's technically better, but something is lost in translation. There was an appeal to the limitations. This is not appealing. So O Entertainment was involved in the production of the series, including their animation division, creatively dubbed O-Mation Animation Studio, but their involvement was more in the producing side, with the animation itself being outsourced to other studios, like the one behind The Wild. Remember The Wild? What? The original series involved a lot of improv according to the cast. It's likely a lot of the show's most iconic moments were spur-of-the-moment line reads by the voice actors, and you can definitely feel that freedom lost in Planet Sheen. It looks like a weird Xbox 360 game.
Oh, I feel good. Lost my pants. Got 'em back.
Look at that. They wrote in the script that when Sheen comes out of the tornado, he's lost his pants, but they must not have had the budget to model a version of him in his spacesuit without his pants, and so they just quickly reverted him back to his original outfit to make it work and just hoped you wouldn't notice. I did.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
There's an undeniable loss of expressiveness. They've gone out of their way to make Sheen's eyes smaller. He's so fucking ugly here. The main cast in the original felt so lively, especially by the end of its run. They were surprisingly emotive, especially compared to other CG cartoons from the time. Fuck it, CG cartoons that are coming out today.
Am I leaning for no good reason?
No, it's actually a very good reason, but...
Here it's like they've gone backwards with the animation quality, and I can't tell if it's simply due to the new team not having as much experience with the characters as DNA had, or if there wasn't even the time to consider doing anything greater. There are brief moments where they try to make a joke relating to low budgets, such as this sequence with the characters falling for an absurdly long time, but it doesn't work because the whole show looks this cheap. You can't tell what's intentionally crappy or not. It's still going! Sets are so limited. Sheen's house, Dorcas's house, random blocks of bland landscape, and the Emperor's castle. That is it. That is all you're going to be seeing for like 90% of the series. Even the small stuff pisses me off. Like every time we see the planet of Xenu, it's represented through this green ball with a wooden stick going through it. At least I think that's wood. But then how come every time we see the ground, it's red? That's like if you saw an image of Earth and it looked all normal, and then you get down to the planet and the water is orange. Like, that's not how it fucking works. Nowhere is the limited animation budget displayed more than in all these wacky Family Guy-esque cutaway gags seen throughout the series. If any cutaway requires them to showcase something on Earth, like this rare appearance of Sheen's mom, it's done through these hideous 2D illustrations. Obviously, there's no need to waste thousands of dollars modeling assets that are only going to be used once, but in that case, why even bother, because they only serve to make your show look more cheap. It doesn't help that they look so poor. Whoever was tasked with illustrating these must have been given nothing more than an afternoon. I hate the way they look.
Please, you're filthy.
If you were wondering if there were any kind of overarching plot in this show, why? But no. Sheen pretty quickly accepts his new life on Xenu, doesn't seem to have any intention of going back home. You know, the entire premise kind of falls apart when you remember Jimmy Neutron is a super genius with multiple rockets and experience going to space. I meant to believe he wouldn't have found Sheen in an afternoon. The only logical explanation I have is that Jimmy does have the ability to rescue Sheen. He just doesn't want to. And I don't blame him. Every time they open an episode with him working on the rocket, I can't help but laugh. As if I'm meant to believe for even a second this kid has any hope of fixing this thing. Planet Sheen was a bad idea from the get-go, all stemming from Nickelodeon's bizarre demands to create a spin-off solely focusing on a character like Sheen. Who knows if Red Acres would have been any better. Nothing ever shown about that series really intrigued me if I'm being honest, but fuck, I'd take anything over this. Despite Keith, Mike, and Steve all having a hand in creating Planet Sheen, none of them had much major involvement in the direction of the show, aside from writing and directing a few episodes here and there. After picking it up, Nickelodeon put the job of developing the series in the hands of Stephen Banks. You may be quick to call him a hack, but I couldn't in good faith say that anybody who had a hand in writing Krusty Towers is a hack. He also wrote Atlantis Scorpantis, and produced the bad seasons of 2.5 Men. But hey, he was involved in most of the best episodes of the original Jimmy Neutron series. He wrote Win, Lose, Kaboom, that's like my favorite episode. Clearly not without a lot of talent. And being in charge of fleshing out a show star in this guy is not an enviable position to be in. It's a real shame this show is the last major time we got to see these characters. Well, one of these characters. I don't think it's stupid to say that we will see a revival of Jimmy Neutron at some point in the future, but it's sad to know that when that day comes, Sheen either won't be included, or will be recast as a result of the unexpected death of his voice actor Jeff Garcia. So if there were to be any silver lining to this show, it would be I'm glad the guy got the opportunity to play such a beloved character again for another 50 segments. But aside from that, I don't think there's any denying that Planet Sheen was Nickelodeon's biggest mistake. You know, unless you want to count not picking up Adventure Time, or Phineas and Ferb, or Making Fanboy and Chum Chum, or Breadwinners, or Bunsen is a Beast, or Sanjay and Craig, or Marvin, or...